We are doing an interview today, and we're starting off. We did an interview, you saw that before, and now we're going to move on to the main bit where we're going to have a tour, see some podcasts with Anand.
Yeah, and then I think we'll go good. We've got an interview coming up as well, so
I think we're going to do very well on this project.
Yeah, and also I'm kind of hungry, so we're going to have to hurry up because I want to eat lunch. So yeah, bye.
My name's Anand, but I have a nickname called Arnie, like the Terminator. I was born here, but I grew up on the Isle of Man. Don't know if any of you guys know where the Isle of Man is, or have you ever heard of it before?
I've heard of it, I don't know where it is.
So it's in the centre, it's in between Ireland and England. It's pretty small, you can go from one place to the other in 1 hour. So I spent most of my childhood there. I recognised that I was pretty good at sports, so I did all sorts of different sports. I did rugby, football, cricket, but then I got into gymnastics and I decided to pursue a gymnastics career for, it was about 15 years, whilst also wanting to pursue a career in science, so I decided to do chemistry and gymnastics.
What got you into sports?
Oh god, that's going way back. As a kid I was quite hyperactive. I would argue that I was more intrigued with just the environment that I was in, like touching and interacting, but probably my parents thought I was just a bit crazy, so I guess that energy was just channeled into sport, and they got me into different sports. And in the end I found my feet originally in football, and then sport took over throughout my life after then, where I did different sports from then on, like, as I said before, gymnastics and athletics full time. So that's how I got into sports.
What age did you start playing sports?
5. Gosh, that's going... Yeah, I think 5 years old was when I got into, or was introduced into different sports, but competitively I would say 14, 15, 16 years old. Yeah.
Do you have any role models for like football or athletics or gymnastics?
I do. I guess there's one for each or different sports, but I guess for firstly football, I guess that was partly inspired through playing a lot of FIFA. I would say my inspiration was Zidane for football. He just had he was a class apart. He was able to just read people. He was like one of very few footballers who actually properly used his head, and you can see that on the field. In gymnastics, I guess my inspirations or people who inspired me varied, but I would say it came mostly from my teammate, a guy called Alex, who really changed the game from where I came from in the Isle of Man. He was the guy who was achieving so much, and that was so unusual, and that inspired me to move forwards. And then obviously I was inspired by other great gymnasts as well when I started to understand the sport, because it is quite a complicated sport to get into. The greatest of all time, Kohei Uchimura, who won the Olympics and the World Championships multiple times. Now for triple jump, for athletics, I would say, again, it was coach driven. I had a coach for the first time, a guy called John Herbert, He's literally like my second dad. He's done it. He's been Commonwealth champion, British champion multiple times. Not only has he been able to he was a triple jump and long jumper for the country, but he also did the bobsled in the Winter Olympics, so he's done all sorts of different things. And of course another triple jumper is, I don't know if you guys, a guy called Philip Zaduwu. He was he grew up around, I guess, around here. He was just so unique, very different, a guy with red hair who was just a class apart from everybody else. I like that.
How often would you train in football or athletics or gymnastics?
Yeah, so I guess for football it was just a couple of days a week. I played so much on my own in the garden, hours and hours kicking the ball on the wall, just trying to find my way to I just imagined ways of playing and trying to obviously score past the goalkeeper. Explored kicking with my other foot because barely anyone else did that at the time. So that was a couple of times a week, and obviously you had training which was once a week, and playing on the weekends here and there. Gymnastics was, because it's more complicated and it's way more technical, you have to train a lot more. So in order to improve, you have to train at least 3 times plus a week, and when it got serious it was pretty much 6 days a week. And for athletics, it's quite interesting, depending on what you do in athletics, the program varies. But for triple jump, which is a hop step jump, you have to be really fast, you have to be really strong, explosive, and you have to work the technique. And so you have to do all sorts of different things. You have to do a lot of weightlifting, lots of jumping, lots of running, so it's very varied. And that's 6 days a week. I try and do 6 days a week, but it can be so tiring because you're using the same muscles all the time. So yeah, 5 to 6 days a week.
What made you change your sports from gymnastics to triple jump?
Yeah, it's quite an unusual change. You wouldn't normally do something like that, especially when I was in my early 20s when that happened, because normally when you changed and do a sport like that, you would expect to have some level of ability and achievement at that age. I was a really good triple jumper when I was young, but coming from an island, I just didn't have the coaching at that time to teach me the basics and to move forwards, which is fine. But I was grateful to have that opportunity. But in gymnastics, I did the Commonwealth Games in 2014, but I had a really bad knee, which I didn't know what was going on, and I had physiotherapy for it, and it was just a time of uncertainty where we just continued. But then after the Commonwealth Games, I had an MRI scan because we just didn't know what was going on, and it turned out that my cartilage was torn completely, so I had to get that surgically repaired. And after that, I was so low for a year and a half, 2 years, because I was working really hard at uni, but too hard in both, and I just lost that mind-body connection. So I was completely lost after that period of time. My life completely changed. I was in pain every day, couldn't even go upstairs. It was just an awful time. But this is going to be quite a weird story, but when I was going through my rehabilitation at back in Harrow Gymnastics Club, an athlete called Dwayne Chambers, he's one of the greatest sprinters for Great Britain. He has this side company called Chambers for Sport, where he comes into different sports clubs and teaches athletes how to run, because in gymnastics no one knows how to run properly. Like when I was running, I used to have one arm straight and the other arm was like flapping like a bird's wing. So he was there to teach kids how to run properly, which is very, very important. Now as an athlete, I realise how important that is. But my physio told me, do not do anything stupid because you are rehabbing, like do not join in. But I couldn't help it. He was jumping across the floor and I just joined in and I started to match him and pretty much beat him. But of course he wouldn't want to admit that, so we just admitted it was a draw. And then he said, Arnie, you'd be a good jumper. And I did say it's been my passion to do jumping, but I just didn't have the opportunity never had it before to do it. And then he gave me that opportunity. And I got into triple jumping through there. But just going back a bit, when I was doing the Commonwealth Games, I didn't compete well enough for myself. It was a great experience, but I knew I could always do better. But because of the knee, it was just a difficult time to compete. And my coach, he wasn't happy with my performances, so which is fine. It was understandable. So I was quite upset at that time, but I had free tickets to see the triple jump final. This is going to be an interesting, weird divine intervention story, but I saw two jumpers there, Tosin Oki and Arpinder, who came second and third. I saw it and I was like, in another world, I could be doing this. Never thought it was possible. Then obviously moving forwards, Dwayne introduced me to John Herbert, who's my coach. My first training session, those two athletes were there under him, which was just insane. And I was like, wow, I'm finally where I should be. And that's my story for that.
Thank you. What does a typical training day look like for you?
Oh gosh, I'll probably have to show you some videos to explain that, but it varies. Every day's different. So Mondays is a weight session, so I do a lot of plyometrics, which is explosive jumps. So think of having blocks and I'm jumping on top of them, jumping down. I'm jumping down from quite high and jumping off the ground, just doing different variations of that to strengthen the legs. And then I do Olympic weightlifting afterwards. So I don't know if you know what a clean or a snatch is. So you lift it's a 20 kilogram bar, you lift it up on top of over your waist, or you lift it over your shoulders, but we're lifting a serious amount of weight because you have to be really, really strong to not just compete in triple jumping, but just to survive the training. You have to get used to it. Like, there's one thing just doing it just here and there, but it's another thing consistently doing it, because the reality is it's the most explosive sport in the world and not many people survive at the top, so you have to make sure that you're very, very strong. So it's very common to get injured all the time, so you have to manage that. So yeah, weight training is Monday. Tuesday is triple jump, so I do a lot of my run-up rehearsal. In order to jump really well, your run-up has to be really good. If you have a rubbish run-up, you're not going to jump far, so we practice that a lot, and then we do a lot of triple jumping afterwards. So just lots of triple jumping off short approach. So normally when you're doing triple jump in a competition, it's about 18 strides. In training, it's 6 to 8 to 10 strides, because trying to jump full approach in a session is going to simply just kill you. If you do that all the time, your body just cannot physically recover because it's just so intense. Then so that's Tuesday. Wednesday, active recovery. So that's where you do a lot of core exercises. You can do swimming. Just try and encourage your body to recover for the next session. Well, on a Thursday, where it's explosive plyometrics again. So we have like loads of hurdles that are aligned and you have to jump over them. Most days for me it's top hurdle height, which is pretty high. It's over my waist, so I have to be quite brave to jump out of those positions. And then after that we do combination triple jump. So in a triple jump it's a hop, step, jump, but for the combination training that we do different variations. So we do like lots of hops in a row, lots of steps, or hop, hop, step, step, hop, step over 30 or 40 meters, which is quite exhausting. I feel quite exhausted just saying this. And then after that we do a lot of sprinting. So we're doing a lot of explosive movement and then we have to sprint afterwards. So obviously your body is destroyed after that. Friday's rest. Saturday is triple jump training, so we do a lot of runway rehearsal and triple jump again, and then after that we do a weight session after. And then Sunday, if you feel like it, do a hill run. So we run up a hill multiple times, and that simply improves our speed and posture when you run up different gradients. It's very useful actually, but I'm not going to lie, trying to do that on a Sunday is quite, you have to get up for that. Sometimes I'm just like, my body's too dead to do that. But that's a typical week, I guess.
Do you have any hobbies outside of school? I mean, sports. Do you have any hobbies outside of sports?
I like music. From a young age, I feel like I'm a bit of an 80s kid. I like my first album was a trance album. So I got into that kind of music and found it quite fascinating because it kind of gives a huge boost when you do sport. And I think from then on, I just wanted to just play good music in the gym when I was training, and that kind of got me into DJing. So I dabble around here and there with that, and it's really good fun. But I don't have much time to do that these days. But that's, I guess, one of my passions, and my other passion is science. I love physics and chemistry, and in addition, in tandem with doing all of the sports from a young age, I've been doing science and did that at university, then did a PhD, which is something that you do afterwards. So I still keep up to date with that. It's quite science is actually creative, so when you get to a certain stage where you really know what you're doing, you can just be creative and you can think of new ideas and make that a reality, and sometimes I just like doing that.
Any sports you would like to try?
Ooh, that's a good one. I've tried so much. I would like to try skiing. Properly, skiing or bobsled. Like in skiing, it's so liberating. It's so, I don't know if you've skied before. Yeah, I think going down the slope would be really fun and trying to control that, but I have 2 left feet, so trying to ski is quite tricky. But if I practice, maybe a different story. But I wouldn't try it now whilst I'm triple jumping because the risk is too high. I know a lot of my friends do it for fun, but I know that 2 of my friends who have skied, who have been training full time, another person just wiped them out, took their knees out, and they've had to have very complex surgeries, and I probably won't want to take that risk. And yeah, the second one is bobsled. So one of my colleagues used to bobsled when he was in the army. I never thought about doing it, but he's enticed me to do it, and that's just because of the speed that you go through, and that just sounds really exciting. Other sports that I'd like to try, I guess those 2 at a high level. Bowling. Bowling would be fun.